It started with a scarf. A silk, emerald green scarf that arrived in a black box with no note, just tissue paper that smelled faintly of bergamot and cedar. I found it on our doorstep one Saturday morning, the same day Claire was hosting brunch for her fashion industry friends. She laughed when she saw it, said one of her designer clients must have sent it as a thank you. I didn't think much of it then. After all, she was a fashion publicist, constantly swimming in fabric samples and comped accessories. But that scarf, it was the first thread in the unraveling. Claire and I had been married for 7 years. No kids. Not for lack of trying, more like lack of readiness, her words, not mine. Our lives were fast, curated, Instagrammable. We lived in a chic loft downtown, drank natural wine, argued over politics and dinner reservations, and made love less frequently than we argued. I worked in tech, startup scene, late nights, big deals, and she moved in the shimmering orbit of models, stylists, and designers. It worked, or at least I thought it did. Until it didn't. His name was Lucien Devereux. A designer with a small but buzzed-about label. French-American. The kind of man who wore turtlenecks in June and talked about fabric like it was theology. I met him once, shook his hand at a gallery opening Claire dragged me to. His grip was limp, his smile too polished, his eyes darting sideways toward Claire even as he pretended to ask about my job. At the time, I told myself I was imagining things. That the way Claire laughed too easily around him, how she casually touched his arm, was just professional friendliness. She always said I was too jealous for someone so emotionally unavailable. It wasn't until she started coming home late, not work late, but perfume on her wrist and smudged lipstick late, that I allowed myself to suspect something more. I asked once, after she snuck in just past midnight on a Thursday. She laughed, told me I was being paranoid, that I needed to trust her more. Then she climbed into bed and turned her back to me. That same week, I found a text on her phone. I wasn't snooping, not really. Her screen lit up while she was in the shower. It was from Elle. Still thinking about last night. That dress wasn't the only thing I wanted to rip off you. I stared at the message for a full minute, heart pounding, mind blank. Then she came out of the shower wrapped in a towel, smiled like everything was fine, and kissed me on the cheek. I didn't say a word. The next morning, I copied the number and sent it to a friend of mine who worked in telecom. Within hours, I had confirmation, the number belonged to Lucien Devereux. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. Instead, I watched. I observed. I catalogued the signs, the way she checked her reflection more often, her sudden urge to go to client dinners, the mysterious receipts from upscale restaurants I'd never been invited to. It got worse when he launched his new collection. Claire was glowing, raving about the show, about the vision and artistry of it all. She showed me pictures on her phone, and there he was, Lucien, smiling beside a model, Claire barely off frame. I played dumb. I nodded and asked questions, all while my stomach churned. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I hired a private investigator. I know how that sounds. Cold. Clinical. Like a move from a thriller, not real life. But I needed to know, needed proof before I shattered whatever fragile thing remained between us. 3 weeks later, I had photos. Dozens of them. Claire entering his townhouse in Soho at night. Leaving in the early morning. One picture in particular gutted me, her in the green scarf, wrapped in his coat, smiling as he held the door open for her. That scarf. That damn scarf was a trophy, a token of a world I no longer belonged in. I stared at that photo for hours, gripping the edge of my desk, trying to steady the quaking rage beneath my ribs. I still hadn't confronted her. I didn't know how. But I knew it was coming. And when it did, it wouldn't be gentle. I waited for the right moment to confront Claire, though I wasn't sure what right even looked like anymore. I carried the weight of her betrayal like a bruise under my skin, unseen but ever present. I could barely sleep. I'd lie next to her at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how she could fall asleep so easily when her lies curled up beside her. The moment came unexpectedly. It was a Sunday afternoon. She was sitting at the dining table, flipping through fabric samples and swatches for an upcoming campaign. She looked so at ease, barefoot in one of my old college t-shirts, sipping tea like she wasn't tearing my world apart thread by thread. "I saw the photos," I said flatly, my voice so quiet it barely rose over the clink of her spoon in the cup. She froze, her hand halfway to her mouth. "What photos?" "Don't insult me." Claire looked up slowly, her eyes scanning my face. I could see her calculating, deciding whether to deny, to downplay, or to deflect. She chose none of those. Instead, she sighed and sat back in her chair. "How long have you known?" "A few weeks." She nodded. "That long?" "I know about Lucien. I know what you've been doing. I know the scarf wasn't a gift from a client." She looked down at her lap, then back at me. "I wasn't planning on you finding out. Not like this. Were you planning on telling me at all?" "I don't know," she said. I kept telling myself it was temporary. That it didn't mean anything. "It didn't mean anything," I repeated, stunned. "You lied to me for months, slept with someone else, and it didn't mean anything?" Claire swallowed. "I was lonely, okay? You're always working. You're always tired. I felt like I didn't exist in your world anymore. So you decided to exist in his instead?" She didn't answer that. She didn't need to. Her silence screamed the truth loud enough. I paced the room, trying to steady my breathing. "You could have told me. We could have talked, fought, gone to therapy, anything but this." She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "Please." "I didn't fall in love with him," she said softly. "It was an escape. A fantasy. He made me feel seen. I wanted to laugh. Or scream. Or maybe both. You were never invisible, Claire. I was there, even when you weren't looking." "You think Lucien saw you?" "He saw a pretty woman to drape his fabrics on. I saw you when your makeup was off and your anxiety was through the roof. I was still there." She looked like she might cry. I hoped she would. I hoped it would hurt. But not because I wanted to punish her, I just needed her to feel something. To know what she'd broken. "I haven't told anyone," I said. "Not yet. But I've spoken to a lawyer." Claire flinched. "You're divorcing me." "I don't see how we come back from this," I said. "Do you?" She didn't answer. The days that followed were a blur of logistics, calls with the lawyer, financial paperwork, quiet meals eaten in separate corners of the loft. The silence between us grew louder. Claire moved into a hotel within a week, citing space to think, but I knew better. She wasn't looking for clarity, she was retreating from the mess she'd made. I stayed. The loft felt cavernous without her, like the echo of a life we no longer lived. I boxed up the things that reminded me of her, her perfume, her yoga mat, her side of the closet. The green scarf, I burned. It wasn't cathartic, just necessary. Like cauterizing a wound. The divorce moved faster than I expected. There wasn't much to fight over, no kids, a prenup, assets split down the middle. Clean on paper. Messy everywhere else. Lucien? He didn't last. 2 months after Claire moved out, I heard from a mutual friend that he'd moved on to a younger muse. Of course he had. That's what designers do with old patterns, they discard them when the season changes. Claire emailed me once. A long, rambling message about regret and lessons and wondering if there was still a version of us that could exist in the future. I didn't respond. Some endings don't need punctuation. Now, a year later, the wounds have mostly scarred over. I moved to a smaller place uptown, closer to the office. I adopted a dog. I sleep through the night again. Sometimes, though, I still see her in crowds, traces of Claire in a stranger's laugh or the swish of a silk scarf. And for a moment, it all comes rushing back. But then I remember, stitches can hold things together, but only for so long. Especially when the tear runs deep.